Shimo, also known as the World Ender, the original or the quintessential titan and the hypothetical, is the biggest titan in the monsterverse as of the GXK Novelization. She is stated to stand around 533 feet or 162.5 meters tall, taller than even Monster Zero. She weighs 200,000 tons, which makes her twice as heavy as Godzilla, who is only 100,000 tons. She is 365 meters long or almost 1200 feet, which makes her longer than even Tiamat and Titanus Nakika. She is a cryokinetic titan with ice-based attacks, and her power is called the Frostbite Breath. She can also change the climate and plunge the world into an ice age. She is a quadrupedal titan with whitish scales and large crystal spikes on her back. She has a turtle-like head and face, and ends with a long tail that possesses thagomizers. And so here in this video we will also tell you about the history and timeline of this quintessential titan. Before 3 million years ago, just as all the other titans, the true beginnings and the origins of these gigantic creatures is unknown to us. But the Hollow Earth Eevee does refer to Shimo in a certain way that can either be translated as the original, the ultimate, or the quintessential titan. Maybe it is the first, or maybe it came around at the same time with the other titans. In any case, we do know for a fact that her birth was before 3 million years ago, as we will see in the next event in this timeline. Between 3 and 2.5 million years ago, here it is discovered that Shimo actually froze the entirety of Greenland within minutes or hours, and this kick-started the first of the ice ages that would happen in a cycle up till 10,000 years ago. This is known to be true as per the findings of a certain paleontologist in the Novelization, and then she would later share her work with Serizawa and Monarch. She discovered that the ice crystals in a certain depth in Greenland coincided with a time between 2.5 and 3 million years ago, and these were flash frozen and produced very tiny crystals, which would only mean that this was the work of a titan, and even the harshest of polar vortexes wouldn't have formed such a layer of ice in a short amount of time. 2.5 million years ago, Shimo's freezing of Greenland, as I said, kick-started the ice ages, with the initial one being blamed on her. Then the later ones would just follow as part of a cycle of reflection of solar radiation from the large ice sheet that had been formed prior, thereby cooling the climate and creating a cycle. Then it was said that in the ending of the Novelization that maybe during periods of no ice, Shimo would emerge again just as a titan that follows her instinct to regulate the world and to begin another ice age. These frost pulses would go on for the course of 2.5 million years. 1 million years ago, within a layer of ice that coincided with this timeline and would later be uncovered again in many places around the world including Siberia, there was also a certain radiation signature, which is kind of like a bioacoustic signature of a titan, and Monarch would term the monster creating this as Monster Age or the hypothetical, since Shimo, the name, and the beast was yet undiscovered at this time, and also at the time of the ice layer discovery. 100,000 years ago, during a conversation between Eileen Andrews and a paleontologist that discovered Shimo's eye signature in Greenland, the cave painting of Godzilla and Shimo was teased and was brought up by Andrews. Later it was again stated that the painting that Eileen Andrews discovered was in one of the Pacific Islands, and the ones who drew it were an ancient people that were lost to time. The people back then called this creature Shimo as the monster whose breath makes the ocean into stone. The cave painting showed Shimo was actually dominating the fight against Godzilla and might have frozen him in place, but maybe, this is speculation from our part, Godzilla's atomic powers might have eventually broke him free. Between 100,000 and 10,000 years ago, during the meeting with the paleontologist, which was a prelude in the novel and occurred in 2016, Serizawa was still alive back then, and it was at this time that they discovered another titan in ice. Serizawa stated that the ice crystal formed in Greenland were identical to one from another place that Monarch was working on, and this was none other than the site of Monster Zero, and therefore we can effectively conclude for a fact that it was Shimo that flash froze Ghidorah in ice in Antarctica, and it wasn't Godzilla that defeated the three-headed dragon all those thousands of years ago. This would make complete sense, as nothing natural could freeze such a powerful titan in one place and trap him for thousands of years. Around 10,000 years ago, it is unspecified as to when the Titan War occurred in the Hollow Earth, but it is now believed to have been between Godzilla, Mothra, and the Titans under the Big G command in one corner against Skar King and the Great Apes on the other corner. Luckily during this time Shimo was by herself, and due to her peaceful nature and alpha status, she would have turned away from siding with either group. After 10,000 years ago, so after the Titan War ended and the great apes were imprisoned within a volcanic region by Godzilla, Skar King would somehow come into contact with Shimo, and maybe with a great loss of apes, attrition warfare, Skar King would somehow be able to break off a shard of the crystal on Shimo's back and then use it to enslave the Frost Titan against her own will. Shimo might have created an ice bridge later on over the volcanic region and then explored the hollow earth with Skar King on her back, and thus would explain how the Iwi would come to know of such an unholy alliance. Also after 10,000 years ago, the sanctuary or the city of the Iwi, which is called Malenka in the novelization, is created, with great help from Mothra, who enclosed the area behind a silk wall that is camouflaged to the outside world. It is here that the lore of the Titan War and Shimo is inscribed by the Hollow Earth Iwi onto stone and preserved for the future. So before 1973, this is just a theory but based on evidence, the handprint on Skull Island as was seen in 1973, and it was indeed not the work of Kong, but of the Skar King, who might have used one of the vortexes to travel to Skull Island. But without Shimo, maybe seeing that the island is void of any major civilization or that it is isolated, he would have gone back to the Hollow Earth. And since the destruction of the vortex in the events of Kingdom Kong, Skar King would have not had the chance again to bring Shimo to the surface from that entry point. 2016, the Greenland ice layer, the frost signature of Shimo, the cave paintings of Shimo fighting Godzilla, and Monster Zero trapped in ice with the same radiation signature were discovered. 2024, the events of Godzilla vs. Kong ended with the Hollow Earth finally being explored and Kong adopting the place as his new home. His entrance to the Hollow Earth, spreading his scent around everywhere, and the GVK battle which resulted in the destruction of the throne room sent signals to the Skar King and Shimo, who by this time are still in the living caves abiding the right time to be active again. Between 2025 and 2027, as Kong investigates a cave filled with bones of dead titans in the Hollow Earth, he uncovers several massive cave paintings depicting different monsters, including the skull crawlers, Kongs, Rodan, and the last displaying a battle between Godzilla and Shimo, which is identical to the cave painting Eileen Andrews discovered in the Pacific Islands. 2027, the Iwi sends telepathic signals to the surface for help, like an SOS, and also to alert of the incoming threat of Skar King and Shimo. Then later on, during his investigation of a new scent, Kong meets up with Zuko, who eventually led him to the living caves where Skar King and the other great apes reside. It is here that Shimo was seen for the very first time, who was under the control of the Skar King. This would eventually culminate in the Battle of Malenka, and then finally in Rio, where Shimo finally met her match against a supercharged evolved Godzilla. She would also later be freed after Zuko destroys the crystal that Skar King uses to enslave the Frost Titan. 2027 onwards. So after the battle in Rio and Shimo is freed from enslavement, she becomes a companion of Kong and returns with him and Zuko to the living caves to rid the place of the other Skar King's red striped apes, and then to establish a new empire. So that's the entire history and timeline of Shimo explained in a video. And yeah, her official size as well. So if you like this video, then watch this other one as well, and do check out our channel for other Monsterverse content. We might just have things you haven't seen before. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video. Take care, guys.